So I hope you didn't think that the war was suddenly going to end. Now, Trump has sandwiched the entire United States into an impossible situation. Leave now and you lose a ton of credibility. You basically wrecked the global economy, you abandoned your Gulf allies, and you really showed how inept the US military is. Or you can double down and keep the war going, hoping and praying that Iran would fall. Now, during his address to the nation, Trump fed us the same spiel, the same line of the war lasting 2 to 3 weeks, but in the same breath, he wants to strike power plants if no deal is reached, and how the US will bring Iran back to the Stone Age. Now, that sounds like an escalation to me, and putting boots on the ground is still highly possible. But what's crazier is how the US is going to give up Hormuz and let the world, including their allies, clean up the mess. We are in Trump's own personal reality show.
The United States imports almost no oil through the Hormuz Strait and won't be taking any in the future. We don't need it. We haven't needed it, and we don't need it. So to those countries that can't get fuel, I have a suggestion. Number one, buy oil from the United States of America. We have plenty. We have so much. And number two, build up some delayed courage. Should have done it before, should have done it with us, as we asked. Go to the strait and just take it.
So you heard the US president, countries around the world, we are now the backholders. They will have to open up the Strait of Hormuz themselves, but everyone knows the truth. Iran has not been decimated. They still have de facto control over the waterway, and no country would want to get dragged into this mess that Trump himself created. No one wants a global war. But the next few words are really striking. Trump is ordering countries with an energy crisis to buy US oil. At the end of the day, it's all about revenue for big oil and a global shakedown for money. Now, it's pretty simple to understand why Trump is peddling US energy to the world. You never let a good crisis go to waste. The US today is the biggest producer and one of the top exporter of oil as well. In January, they sold over 3.9 million barrels a day to the global markets. That's a lot of oil, and by telling countries to buy American oil, Trump is basically trying to beat the prices up. Basic supply and demand. Now, many countries get their oil from the Middle East, especially countries in Asia like Korea, China, and Taiwan. It's because Middle Eastern oil is the better choice for them. Trump is trying to twist Asian economies into a pretzel, which is going to ironically damage his allies even further, which would ultimately backfire on the US economy. Now, Asia imports 60% of their crude from the Middle East, and they also bring in huge volumes from Russia. And that's despite the sanctions for key reason. Major refineries in China, Japan, and South Korea, they are all geared up for heavier crude oil from the Middle East. The oil is also cheaper, so they save more. But a key reason is the distance or proximity. American crude is very far away. US shipments can take up to 2 months to arrive in North Asia, but for Middle Eastern crude, it takes only 30 to 40 days. That's a very big distance, which also translates to more costs because the voyage of the oil tanker is going to take longer. Now, Trump has said before that the Venezuela operation was about oil, and the US wants the supply. Oil also plays a big part in the Iran war. Now, the US might not be able to seize the assets, but as prices go up and Hormuz continues to get blocked, countries might be forced to buy American crude. The problem with Trump's orders is how it will just drive costs up for many of his allies, which is where the US gets the majority of their electronics and chips, anyways. But yet, Trump is still trying to brag about the US energy supply and how there's just so much gas in the country.
Remember, because of our Drill Baby Drill program, America has plenty of gas. We have so much gas. Under my leadership, we are number one producer of oil and gas on the planet without even discussing the millions of barrels that we're getting from Venezuela.
Now, sure, the US sells a lot of LNG, but just like their oil exports, it's extremely expensive due to the distance. This is going to boomerang back on big tech companies in the US that urgently needs cheap AI chips. Now, in order to win the tech race, you need to keep your power generation cheap, especially in manufacturing. China doesn't have that problem because they have Russian supply. Their partnership with Putin is so strong that supply won't suddenly disappear. China's energy mix is also very diversified with a ton of nuclear, solar, and hydropower. But their biggest chip competitor that the US relies on is extremely dependent on gas. We are, of course, talking about Taiwan. That's where TSMC, the global chip maker, is located at. Taiwan generates almost half of their total power using natural gas, and that dependency has been growing for almost 20 years. Now, what's bad about this is 33% of the gas comes from Qatar. So now Taiwan has to scramble to get more LNG from Australia and the United States. They are competing with other countries like Singapore, where I'm from, for gas supply. Even Trump can understand what this means. Demand rises while supply shrinks, prices go ballistic. Now everyone suffers, especially industries that need a ton of power for production. And this is why US stocks were crashing almost immediately after Trump's speech. He still doesn't realize or doesn't want to admit that the US still needs global supply chains. And because of the war, Hormuz is still closed. Precious inputs like helium can't get to chip companies, so making all those AI chips to rise in price, and in the worst case scenario, the number of chips produced might even drop. Just within hours, the S&P fell by nearly a full percentage point. US tech, the Nasdaq 100 crashed by 1.3%. Trump's insistence on waging the war is going to destroy tech profits. This used to be a capital light industry with huge profits, but the tables have turned. Big tech, especially the hyperscalers, are going to find their customers broke, while the chips they buy will get much more expensive. So, if you're wondering why the markets are collapsing, this is why. Trump's orders to buy US energy is not only going to hammer Taiwan, it's going to hammer other allies as well. Now, Japan is another energy dependent country. They import 90% of their energy supply. Well, it seems Tokyo now has to buy US oil and gas to survive, which directly translates to lower profits and industry suffering. Now, overseas investors they're dumping 1.5 trillion yen worth of Japanese stocks. That's nearly $10 billion worth. It's a huge dump and it's getting worse as the Iran war continues. Japanese households have 20% of their assets tied up in their local market. And with the yen crashing and equity prices dropping, how do you think Japanese consumers feel? Now, I believe they feel pretty rotten. And when you feel rotten, do you think you'll go around splashing money? You obviously won't. You're going to do cutbacks. And that means cutting imports of goods and services, especially from the US. Now, Japan imported $84 billion worth of goods from the United States. They are Trump's biggest customer in Asia, and he's clobbering his biggest customers and suppliers. And without a doubt, it's going to backfire on the entire US economy, and you can take this to the bank. Now, Trump is really stuck in a twilight zone. His brand of voodoo economics is not going to work long term, and that's why him bragging about the US economy just doesn't make sense. How is this the hottest or the strongest economy in the world when your supply chains are even more fractured today?
And crippled country after the last administration and made it the hottest country anywhere in the world by far with no inflation, record setting investments coming into the United States, over $18 trillion, and the highest stock market ever, with 53 all time record highs in just 1 year.
So you heard why you must invest in the United States, right? Now, according to Trump, there's no inflation in the country. Record investments coming in are worth $18 trillion and stocks are at record highs. Now, how do you even take this seriously? The US economy sounds like the Bermuda Triangle right now. There's so much smoke and mirrors, it's simply crazy. And let's debunk the inflation myth. US inflation is alive and well. It's going to get even worse in the months to come thanks to higher energy prices. Gasoline and diesel are up by at least 30%, which will trickle down to everywhere. Whether that's farmers growing your food or you getting to work, your cost of living is going to rise. That is the very definition and real life impact of inflation. Now, ever since the Iran war started, the odds of multiple rate cuts have collapsed. We have gone from nearly 3 cuts to zero, and we are about to hit rate hike territory. That's how dangerous the specter of inflation is. And we know what that means. Higher rates could trigger one of the many black swans circling the US economy. It could crater the stock market and then consumption could collapse. It could pop the AI bubble or just collapse the entire private credit crisis. Trump really seems oblivious to the obvious risks. We have not seen the trickle down effects just yet. Many countries, including the US, they are still getting oil from the Middle East. And those are the cargoes that left the region before the war started. So the oil is being transported around and still heading to the end destinations, which means the shortage is going to hit the world quite soon. It's like a fuse that has been lit. There are big air pockets of oil shortage that could hit different parts of the world at different times. Now, according to JP Morgan, the shortage shock has already hit Asia and Africa thanks to their proximity. Being so close to the Middle East, we are all feeling the heat first. Now, the next in line to be clobbered is Europe. Many existing deliveries from the Middle East could stop by April the 10th, then the shortage will be felt. Now, for the US, it will be April the 15th. For Australia, deliveries might stop by 20th of April. Once again, that doesn't mean there'll be zero oil coming into the regions. There will still be some supply from places like Russia and China, but the missing barrels from the Middle East will be felt. Now, for certain countries, it will feel like losing a third to half of your entire energy supply. And that's the air pocket and why governments are desperately trying to find new suppliers. It's why we are watching many countries like Korea telling people to ration their energy use. Going forward, we can also expect Iran to impose their $2 million a ship toll booth. Now, for them, this is going to be a very lucrative income stream. They can potentially earn billions from this to fund the economy and to fund the war effort. But for everyone else, it would mean adding an additional 2 to 3% to the price of oil per barrel. So we are now in a world of structurally higher inflation. Consumption will get hammered, it will get compromised, and the US economy will be very exposed. Now, when 70% of your GDP is consumption based, you need people to keep spending or your economy contracts. That's why nothing coming out of the White House makes sense anymore. What's funny is how Trump actually admitted that the US economy itself is in trouble, that the structural obligations like healthcare are becoming unpayable. And if that's the case, why even spend tens of billions of dollars to wage this unwinnable war?
Because the United States can't take care of daycare. That has to be up to a state. We can't take care of daycare. We're a big country. We have 50 states. We have all these other people. We're fighting wars. We can't take care of daycare. Medicaid, Medicare, all these individual things, they can do it on a state basis. You can't do it on a federal. We have to take care of one thing, military protection.
The Iran war is going to change everything. Over time, it's going to set back US economic power and influence by years, maybe even decades. Many countries are going to reduce dependence on US trade and markets. Why? Because you simply don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or even in the next hour. The global economy today is now a circus show. But let me know what you think. Is the US economy really the hottest stuff in our history? And will countries get forced to buy US oil and gas? Let me know in the comments below. Stay safe. Be sure to smash the like button and subscribe as we navigate through these crazy times.